having a super fantastic sparkling day. Welcome to Porch Light Letters podcast number 2562. Where was your family when they bought their first home? Or did they rent for the entire life that you lived with them, or did they buy a place? I have never been through, I was thinking about this and I thought, I have never been through the act of actually purchasing a home before. I'm a first home buyer. I've never purchased a home before. Never. Not even been a co-signer on a home purchase. None of that. But I'm willing to learn. So where was your family think? Think about questions like, where was it located? Who was with them when they bought it? How did they save up or make it happen? What was the home like? What year was it? What year was the home? What year did they purchase it? Double barrel question there. Did they renovate or make any changes? Did anybody help them renovate or make changes? And what do they remember most about the day that they got the keys? Yes, getting those important keys. Every home has a story and every story has a beginning. The memories we build here last a lifetime. So buying a first home is about much more than bricks and timber. It's about hope, hard work, and creating a place where memories begin. For many families, owning a home was a dream that took years of saving and sacrifice. Every dollar put aside, every extra shift work, and every difficult decision brought them one step closer to having a place they could truly call their own. Oh, there's so much excitement in buying homes that I see around. That first home became the backdrop of everyday life. It was where children took their first steps, birthdays were celebrated, holiday traditions were created, and family meals were shared around the kitchen table. The house itself may have been small or simple, but the memories made there often lasted a lifetime. I know that there are houses out there where it was the grandparents' house. It was their first home. It's where the grandparents bought the home and it's still in the family, and it could be one of their children have taken over the home and lived there, but they brought all of their children home from the hospital to that house, and their children grew up in that house and got married from that house, and then started bringing the grandkids over, and it's still in that house, is still in the family, and there's a lot of memories in those walls. Years later, we often remember the little things more than the address. I could with the exception of the first 3 places I lived, only because of my age, I could probably tell you the address of every home we had since then. And on most of them, I could probably draw you a rough diagram what the layout of the house was. I had a lot of houses. We remember the little things more than the address, the creaky floorboards, the favorite tree in the backyard, the neighbors next door, or the window where someone always waited for family to come home. Those details are what turn a house into part of your family's history and make it a home. And today your challenge is ask a family member about the first home they bought. Where was it? What made them choose it? What sacrifices did they make to afford it? What were their happiest memories of living there? Record their story today, because every family home holds memories that deserve to be passed on. And also let us know in the comments below too. And the other one, was it a new or a used house? Was it one that they had built for them, or was it one that was already built that they just moved into? So think of all the questions around a home and the house and purchasing it and moving. Where did they move from and to? Did they live local in the town? Were they moving into the town when they purchased their home? There's all sorts of questions that you can ask about the home. This place I rent. The only house I've lived in that was purchased, after I moved out, would have been when we were living in Virginia, and Brad bought, and we built a house out there. I was there for the looking at the house and helping decide which one it was going to be. Brad did the actual purchasing process of it. And it was all in his name, which was totally fine with me. It was his house that we ended up turning into a home for 13 years. And that house was built. We wanted something new, we wanted something fresh, because we could not find what we wanted looking at the houses that existed. And it happened to be this development that was building places, and they had a floor plan that agreed with us, that we liked. and it had an unfinished basement, which we ended up finishing that basement while we were there, although we got some flack from the kids later on that we didn't do it during their prime teenage years, where they could have had their mates come over and play pool down in the because we had this open area downstairs, and directly underneath the family room is where we put the bedroom. So the bedroom downstairs was the same size as the family room. Then we had a 3/4 bathroom, and then we had this big open area that had a pool table in it, and we had some round tables in there as well, where you could sit and play board games. And then we had another room that was a purpose-built movie room. And I will tell you, after that was finished, we spent a lot of time down there watching movies. It was awesome because we went and we spent a little bit of money on the sound system that went in there, and so we had the speaker, we had the surround sound in there. They balanced all the speakers for us, so you got pure sound. It was just amazing. And we didn't go with the regular, they have the insulation up against the brick wall, you then put the wood frame over it, and then you put the drywall. No. We ripped all of that off, and we had, I can't think of the name of it now, but it was 2¼ inch insulation that went directly onto the concrete wall. So we ripped out all the insulation that was already there. We didn't put up any frames. We actually gained space, and we had it throughout the whole basement. But it was 2¼ inches of dense insulation that went up against the wall. On one side had fabric on it, and that's the side that faced into the room. So we didn't have to worry about losing inches because of the insulation up against the concrete wall. Then you put the frame there, then you put the drywall. We lost all of that, which was awesome. And this stuff was like 99% sound absorbing. And I will tell you, putting that into a purpose-built movie room was incredible. We watched some movies down there, and we were able to turn the volume up. We weren't disturbing our neighbors. Our receiver had 0 decibels up to positive decibels, and we usually listened, and for us, for Brad and I, the sound was, we usually listen to movies around -1, -2 decibels, and that was pretty loud. Remember the youngest son came home from school one time, and he could hear this thumping noise and couldn't figure it out. Now we had an 80-foot driveway as well, so we were right down the back, and then the movie theater was built up against the wall that was buried in the ground. Just to give you context, at the front of the house, but it was buried in the ground. And and the youngest one came home, and as he says, walking down the driveway, he said, all I could hear was this boom, boom, boom noise. And he got inside, and as he got close to the house, it got louder. He comes inside in the foyer there, and he could still hear it. He traces it. He ends up walking down into the basement, into the movie theater, and here's his older brother sitting there with like +2 or 3 or 4 decibels, somewhere around there. And it's really, really loud. And he goes, what are you doing? And his brother turns around and says, I just wanted to see how loud I could stand it. So on the plus side, up until about, I think it was like 5 decibels, I think is what he went up to, you could hear it out at the street. We usually watched a movie at -1, 2, or 3 on the decibel scale, just to give you some context of how good that receiver's. And we watched some really good movies down there and had a lot of fun down there. And that was a really good movie room. But the really cool part is that when Brad and his boys would play board games, they are very loud. They might be sitting around the same table together, just across the table from each other, but they're constantly yelling at each other. They've got the volume's up here. And it's like, hey, use your inside voices. So it might drop a little and then it goes back. But the thing I loved about the basement is I could toss them down there to go play their games, that we had tables down there they could play the games on and all that sort of thing. Even Brad even had poker nights down there, which was awesome because we had the table set up with all the snacks and the food on and that, and I'll just go down there, check that, and then just go back upstairs again. And Gus would follow me down there. Gus would go check up on everybody, make sure everybody was okay and doing all right and everything else. But I could have them go down in the basement, play their board games. They could be as loud as they wanted to. And I had nice peace and quiet upstairs. I could sit and watch a movie. I could read a book. It was definitely a lot quieter upstairs. But that was a great house that we had. I was involved on the selling side because at some point Brad put my name onto the deed and all of that. So I was involved with the selling process and having to go to the title company to do all the change over that. But I never have purchased a house by going to the title company. I've helped hunt for houses, but never sat there and signed any papers to purchase a house, which I think is quite a feat. But anyway, that first home was it was pretty cool to be able to go in there and settle in. And the house was exactly even after we were in the house and we'd been living in there for a few months, if people come and say, "Is there anything you would change or make different?" We were like, "Not really." The rooms were all good sizes. The bathrooms were all great. The open areas were great. The dining room, the living room, the family room, the breakfast area, the kitchen. I loved my kitchen. I will tell you this. I loved my kitchen. I love good kitchens, and this was a good kitchen. Absolutely love spending time in there cooking and baking and all of that sort of stuff. Haven't really found a kitchen like that since, because I haven't done much baking and stuff over the years since we left Virginia. I still do cooking, but as far as baking goes, I don't bake as much as I used to. And we had the boys come over demolishing everything. So and that house made a lot of memories. I cooked my first Thanksgiving there. I never cooked Thanksgiving before because we don't celebrate Thanksgiving in New Zealand, but I had a great kitchen to do it in. And my mother-in-law was in town for the first time I made Thanksgiving dinner. And we had our oak table at the time, which you open it up and there's two leaves that go with it. So it went from a 6 foot long, no, yeah, 6 foot long table to a 10 foot long table, which was pretty cool. And we extended out as far as we could, and there was only the six of us, myself, Brad, the three boys, and my mother-in-law. And we put the table out to 10. It was 6x4 was the 6 foot long, 4 foot across. And then when it was extended, it was 10 foot long and 4 feet wide. And we just put all the food out on there. I had the boys help me make certain dishes and things. And of course, when they refused to eat them, I said, "Hang on, you help make that. Don't you want to see how it turned out?" And I remember Chris and Josh, the two youngest ones, turned the chairs around at the dining table long before we even set the table, and were watching me wash the turkey. And so I reached inside the turkey and I pulled out the bag that had all the giblets in it. And was saying, "Look, here's the neck of the turkey. Here's its heart. Here's its liver. Here's its kidneys." And they're like, "Oh." But they sat there and they watched and they paid attention, watched me season it and all of that, and put it breast side down into the oven. And later on, we had fun turning it over. I don't remember what weight it was, but we had everything cooked. Sit down. So let's reverse engineer what needs to be done when. And like tennis still in its compressed state at that point. We hadn't even set the table. And my mother-in-law looks around and the kitchen is pristine. There is not a dirty dish to be seen. And that's how I like to cook. When I cook and bake, as I like to clean as I go. And I remember her looking around the kitchen and going, if I didn't know any better, I would not know that there was a Thanksgiving dinner being cooked right now, because the kitchen was spotless. The crock pot was on in the corner with the sweet potato casserole in there, which Josh helped me made, and we got him to taste it afterwards. You made it, you got to try it. So he did. But we had to turn I always cook my bird's breast side down, because then all the juices run into the breast, and then you turn it over for the last 30 minutes or so of cooking, and it helps brown the top. So it helps brown the top side and all that, but you still got these very moist turkey or chicken breasts by cooking it breast side down. Turning it over was fun because it's such a big bird. But it was awesome. It just turned out it was perfectly cooked. As Brad was carving it, juices were just flowing out of Brad's there carving off the turkey breast, and the juices are just flowing out of this thing. And everybody loved how moist and tasty the turkey was. So I was quite proud of myself. It was the first time cooking a turkey, and my mother-in-law was there, and she was impressed as well. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, there was a lot of good food. I even made bread for that pull-apart herbal bread, which turned out really good, because I had to partially cook it the night before and then finish it off the next day. I had my little lists out there at what time things had to be on, or I had to start working on stuff. I was very organized for that one. Probably the most organized I've ever been for any meal I've prepared when there's been guests there. But it turned out really good, and that's just one of the memories that I have from that house. And that was the same house where Brad was first diagnosed with cancer, and we went through all the cancer treatments and stuff there the first 18 months of it. And we moved between because he was cancer free after surgery, and then and that was in 2008, and then we were told in October of 2015 that his cancer, no, 2014, that his cancer was back. Yeah, in October of 2014 found out his cancer was back, by which stage we were living in California. So while I was in remission, we moved. It was hard leaving, but I will say this, I loved the 4 seasons in Virginia, but you can keep your humidity. I melted every season, and Brad said, oh, you're climatized to it. And the day we left Virginia, we stopped off at the UPS store to drop off all of the DirecTV stuff. And I had to go just from the car into the store and back out again into the thing. And I was soaking wet by the time I got back, and there was no rain. It was just humidity. And I had the next 12 hours sitting in this wet clothing as we drove to Tennessee for our night in Tennessee. It was the only place we'd booked ahead for our journey. And then the next day we'd decide how far we're going to do. And then I'll go look for hotels that would take pets and go and call up and make a reservation. That's how we drove across America. It was so much fun. In fact, I think our blog post for all of that's still up too. But yeah, I said to Brad as I climbed on the thing, I said, you told me that I would climatize to this humidity. He goes, yeah. He says, you do. And I says, I've been here, this is my 13th summer here in Virginia, and it still kills me. I ain't changed. But anyway, all right, we are out of here. Go out, have a super fantastic sparkling evening. Ask questions about first houses and things. Was their first house the house you were born and raised in, and your parents are still living in that house? How often did you move? Ask questions about their first house and that. So go out, have a super fantastic sparkling evening, and we'll catch you guys back here tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. Pacific. Hei konera.